today, we are doing pretty much what we did in the last video. We were dealing with the sine ratio in trig, and so today we're doing something pretty much the same math, but we're just using a different ratio today. Okay, so today we're dealing with cosine. So real fast, last video we did sine, so that was sine was opposite over hypotenuse, so OH. And so today, if you look, cosine is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. So you should remember ca, so C-A-H. So a way you can remember this is so ca. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So again, we're doing the same math we did in the last video, but it's just a different ratio. So like if I wanted to do the cosine of A, this is the angle I'm looking from. So opposite the 90 is always the hypotenuse. Opposite of A is going to be 15, and adjacent to A is going to be 8. So I would end up doing adjacent over hypotenuse, which would make 8 over 17. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this is known as the cosine ratio. All right, so we're going to take this and we're going to put it into play in our example. So here we go. Okay, so right now it's asking me, it says find the following cosine ratios. So the first thing it asks is what is the cosine of A? So right now, if I'm starting at A, I know that this is always going to be my hypotenuse. Opposite of my angle is going to be the opposite side, which makes my third side my adjacent side. So I know cosine is CAH, so adjacent over hypotenuse. So that means I'm going to be doing the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So right now my adjacent side is 8 and my hypotenuse is 17. So that's going to be 8 over 17, okay? Now I wanted to find the cosine of B. So what you'll need to remember is the hypotenuse is going to stay the same, but the thing that's going to change are the adjacent and the opposite sides. So if I'm looking at everything from angle B, this is going to be my opposite side, which makes this my adjacent side. So right now, if I am doing the cosine of B, remember that's adjacent over hypotenuse, so adjacent over hypotenuse. So that's going to be 15 over 17 would end up being the cosine of B. So that's how you would write the ratios. So remember, always start at 90 hypotenuse, write the opposite side so the third side is your adjacent side. So we're going to take this and we're actually going to plug it into example number 2 over here. Okay, so on example number 2, we need to find the value of x. So right now looking at this, I know I have an angle and a side length. So I know I can use trig here. So this is my 90-degree angle, so I know this side is always going to be my hypotenuse. That is not going to change, okay? So this is the angle they've given me, so I need to write the angles from that angle. So opposite of that is going to be my opposite side, and my third side is just going to be my adjacent side. So let's look at what I need. I need my adjacent side. I have my hypotenuse. So if I look at my letters up top, CAH is going to be adjacent and hypotenuse. So that means I need to use the cosine ratio. So here we go. So I'm going to write the cosine of the angle they gave me, which is 30, is going to be equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So I'm going to do x over 15. So I want y'all to remember, if I was to type the cosine of 30 into the calculator, it's going to give me a number. And so when I divide these two numbers, that's going to be equal to each other. So I need to figure out what value of x would make that equal to cosine 30. So remember, treat this as if it's a full number. So now what I want y'all to do is I need to get x by itself. So to get rid of 15, that means I have to multiply by 15 on both sides. So I'm going to times 15 over here. I'm going to times 15 over here. So that's going to cancel on that side. And then now in the calculator, I'm literally going to do 15 times the cosine of 30. So in your calculator, if you're using one of these calculators, if you look underneath the trig or underneath the control button, there's a trig button. So you're going to do 15 times trig cosine, and you're going to type in 30. And whenever you click enter, that should roughly give you the value of 12.99 would be your rough number. So ladies and gentlemen, the measurement of x would be 12.99 using trig, okay? Let's look at example number 3. Okay, so on example number 3, it says I need to find the value of x here. Okay, so if you look, they've given me an angle and they've given me a side length. So I know that I can find the other side lengths by using trig. So again, opposite the 90 is always the hypotenuse. This is the angle they've given me. So opposite of that is going to be the opposite side, which makes this my adjacent side. So look, they've given me the adjacent side. I need my hypotenuse. So if I use cosine, I know that's adjacent and hypotenuse. So adjacent, hypotenuse. So I'm going to use the cosine ratio. So here we go. So I'm going to do the cosine of the angle, which is 32, is going to be equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent over hypotenuse. So 25 over x. Now remember, the last lesson I told y'all, when y'all are doing this trig stuff and there's a variable on bottom, the math that you're going to do is you're literally going to take everything over here and underneath here, and you're going to swap places with them. So it's going to come out to be x is equal to 25 divided by the cosine of 30. And so that's literally what I'm going to type in the calculator right now. So I'm going to do 25 divided by trig cosine 30. And when I click enter, that should give me a rough number of 28.87 would be my answer there, 28.87. So this is how you find the hypotenuse using the cosine ratio if need be, okay? Let's jump over to our last example. Okay, so now on my last example, it asks me to find the measurement of theta. Now if you look, theta is an angle measurement. So I know if I need to find an angle, I'm going to be using the inverse of what I'm given here. Okay, so real quick, opposite of my 90 is always the hypotenuse. This is the angle I need to find. So opposite of that is the opposite side. And then this is going to be my adjacent side. So it looks like I have my hypotenuse on my adjacent side. So AH is going to be the cosine ratio. So here we go. So I need to find the cosine of theta is going to be equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. So 7.3 over 8.1. So I know if I need to find the angle measurement, I need to use the inverse of cosine. So in your calculator, you're going to do cosine to the -1 power. Remember, that means inverse is going to be inside the parentheses. I'm going to write the ratio of adjacent over hypotenuse. So literally in your calculator or on your computer calculator, you're going to click trig. You're going to go to cosine raised to the -1 power, which is inverse. And then you're literally just going to type in that ratio. So 7.3 being divided by 8.1 is going to give you roughly 25.68. So the value of theta is going to be 25.68 roughly. Okay, so that is how you find the angle measurement using your trig ratios. Okay, if you need any help, please message me on Schoology, or you can ask whoever's in the room. Good luck on your skill check.